Before we get into this week's episode, I would like to give a shout out to our newest patron, Sweetzel or Sweatzel 2019. It's making me want pretzel. I don't know.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thanks for coming our newest patron.
This is our 16th patron, I believe. We need 9 more. When we reach 25, we're doing that big giveaway, the 3 separate giveaways. So if you want to become a patron and help support us, you can find the link in the description. And I also wanted to take a minute to shout out Miss Jessica Seitz, Nurse Jessica Seitz, because she worked some voodoo magic, and now we have the video option on Spotify. So you don't have to go to YouTube if you want to see the video. You can actually watch the video on Spotify now. So thank you, Jessica.
Yay! A little more work for me. I'm Nurse Jessica Seitz, along with Nurse Erica. We're Nurses Uncorked, the podcast that takes nursing facts with nursing comedy and makes a little cocktail out of it. Oh boy, everybody. Welcome back to Nurses Uncorked. This is an exciting episode for me.
Woo-hoo.
Yes, it's Nurse Jessica and Nurse Erica here, and I have my hubby on today. Husband is here. Gosh, I guess it's going to be weird to introduce my husband. For those of you that have never met my husband or seen my husband, we'll get into who my husband is in a second. But what is this? What is this week? It's an important anniversary for us.
It's our 1-year anniversary. It's our 52nd episode. Woo! Happy
I
anniversary
can't believe it.
to us.
And we have
survived.
never missed a Tuesday. Can you
And we
believe
haven't
that?
killed each other.
No, it's come close a couple times.
Times.
Hey, if we can survive that, we can survive anything.
That's right.
So, first, I want to say thank you, hubby, for coming on, because this is very nice of you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yes. Welcome to Nurses Uncorked.
And congratulations to a whole year.
Oh, thank you.
Aw.
But in celebration, Erica and I are going to be opening some champagne. And
I already
you made yours
opened
already?
mine. I did.
Oh, so I get to be the only idiot doing this? Okay. Oh, wow.
I made
this
mine
is
into a mimosa because it's early here. But yes, we are
And that's-
both having champagne
Just point
to
it,
celebrate.
point it away from your chandelier, honey.
Or the computer. So mimosas. I would hope everyone knows what a mimosa is. It's champagne and orange juice, okay? It's not hard.
She
Okay.
drinks champagne all the time, as you can see.
Champagne, Chardonnay. Woo!
God dang, that's loud. Holy
That was loud.
moly. All right, I'm going to make mine, and then I'm going to bring the hubby his. Maybe while I'm transporting him his drink, Erica, you could let my husband introduce himself a little bit and tell us who he is, and I'll be right back.
Yeah, well, the reason that we are having you on today is because this is your specialty, the topic that we're going to be talking about. So tell everyone what it is you do, your experience, your specialty.
So I am a board certified OB-GYN who's going to get poured a little bit of Chardonnay.
Champagne.
Oh, champagne. That's right. Yeah. I'm used to it being Chardonnay in this household.
Right?
Is that enough, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I get a strawberry or something?
No.
No? Okay. So yeah, OB-GYN trained, was in private practice for a short period of time, and then became an OB hospitalist about 10 years ago. So I've been doing that exclusively since then. And then I've started working as our women's service line medical director for our healthcare system that I work for here in Tampa.
So basically, you're very qualified to speak on this subject.
I don't know if anybody's very qualified to speak on something that's never happened before.
Well, true. That's
sure.
true.
I can give my 2 cents,
But in addition to that, we also have Jessica, whose specialty over 20 years has been in labor and delivery. And you both live in Florida. So this is like perfect to discuss this.
Yeah, Erica presented this idea to me, and I was like, oh, it's really smart, Erica. That's a good idea.
Yeah. straight out of the headlines. It's like a very timely topic, and it's very controversial. But luckily, we have you guys here, 2 experts, to go through this.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
We didn't get to do cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to us. 1 year anniversary. Nurses
Whoop, whoop.
Uncorked.
All right. So did we talk about what we're talking about already?
No, I haven't yet. He was just introducing himself. So,
okay.
Give you guys a little background. On March 21st of this year, very recently, Florida quietly passed Senate Bill 7016. It's called Live Healthy, becoming the first and only state to allow doctors to perform C-sections. Are you ready for this? Outside of hospitals. But undone.
Sounds a little crazy to me, but
it does sound a little crazy. It was bundled as part of a package of various healthcare laws, which we'll touch on, signed by Governor DeSantis. The last couple of years, there's been unprecedented number of maternity wards closing across the country. In Florida, there has been 17 closed since 2019, I read. Legislators, in their infinite wisdom, think that they can address this by legalizing out-of-hospital C-sections. And so proponents of the bill claim this will increase access to care and address the maternity care deserts, quote unquote, that are in Florida. They argue that women prefer to not give birth in the hospital, which I think is hilarious because no. And that
there might be a few, but I think the majority of people, yeah.
Right. And they think this will lower costs to patients. And Florida Senator Gail Harrell, who was the sponsor of the bill, said it's really no different than when we started having outpatient surgery centers back in the day. Opponents of the bill, including the Florida Hospital Association and the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, warned that there will, of course, be an increased risk of complications. So let's get into it.
There's so much to talk about.
What was your guys' initial reaction when you first learned about this recently?
I said, huh? Come again? I just saw it pop up on the news one morning. I didn't even, like you said, it was quiet. I didn't even know that they were voting on it. What about you, honey? Did you know that was happening?
I mean, I knew about it. This is, I think, the 3rd or 4th time that they've tried to pass this.
Is it really? So, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's come up in the past a few times and been voted down. So I knew that they were trying for it. I didn't expect it to actually pass, but it did.
Yeah. Why is it always Florida?
Everything happens in Florida.
Why is it always
Florida?
Florida?
It's the hub of innovation, isn't it? Yeah, I mean,
right.
Yeah.
It's like we're like the guinea pigs. Like they try all the weird shit out here, and or we just do the first of all the crazy.
You've got the fake nurses running around. You've got doctors just wielding scalpels on pregnant women outside of hospitals. No, it's not. It's not quite that crazy, but it does seem to always be Florida.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, they seem to be always pushing the envelope on
insanity.
How can we do something for the cheapest way possible? You know what I mean? Like it's So you do see a lot of that stuff in Florida, it seems.
For sure.
Florida has the 3rd highest C-section rate in the country at 36% versus the national average, which is just over 32%. So has there been a push recently or initiatives pushed for Florida OB-GYNs to decrease C-section rates?
Oh, gosh, we could have a whole podcast about this topic.
Yeah, we could.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there has been. I mean, the Florida Perinatal Quality Collaborative finished up their C-section reduction initiative. I think it was about 1.5 or 2 years ago. That a considerable amount of the hospitals in the state, partnered with them on. And I think it was really trying to push physicians to be a little bit more patient and not go to section as quickly. So it was kind of advocating for us to wait a little bit longer before we diagnosed someone with arrestive dilation and had some, pretty thorough ways to analyze fetal heart rate tracings and respond to them so that we could, see if we could decrease the C-section rate. It was it improved rates in some hospitals. Some hospitals, it didn't really improve them. But, I think when you talk about C-section rates in this new concept, of an advanced birth center, I mean, I would be really hesitant to be at a outside birth center and really be pushing the envelope and trying to reduce the C-section rate. I mean, I think most of us feel pretty uncomfortable, with somebody pushing for 4 hours in the hospital. I mean, in a birth center, I mean, it would be even more.
What doctor in their right mind is going to put themselves in this situation? Do any of you think this is a good idea?
Well, when I was talking with my hubby privately, about this the other night was, when these patients do end up pushing or whatever for a long time, the babies can get wedged in the birth canal, which, we've obviously know about that from the horrible case where they did the Zalvinelli and all that. But so I'm like, we're going to then operate on these patients outside of the hospital where the baby might be wedged and stuck, and we're trying to push the kid from below and get them out. Like it lines up a whole series of complications. Like it just sounds scary to me. I know that they claim they're going to have the resources, but are they really going to have the right amount of resources?
Well, I mean, it's tough to know. I mean, the rulemaking process hasn't really even started, so we'll see what the real requirements will be in the future. But if you ask what kind of doctor would even attempt such a thing, I mean, it's hard because I can see where OBs might want to try this. I mean, we
why?
have been living.
Tell us why.
So here's the push. For years we've been living in a system where year after year we get reductions in the amount that we get paid for our services by the federal government. And for years we had to all join together and be able to bargain with insurance companies to get paid appropriate amounts as well. And now we're in a situation where we all work for private equity firms. No one has ownership anymore. So you've gotten into a situation where, from a fiscal sense, people are ready to take risks. And while that all was happening to us, we saw people in orthopedics, who were recouping a lot of that money that they lost by owning and operating their own surgery centers. And I mean, I think it would have seemed crazy 10, 15 years ago to talk about doing a hip replacement in a surgery center, but my mother's had both of her hips replaced in surgery centers. So, I mean, those are big surgeries, right? So it's like, where does that, where is it safe? Where is it not safe? I don't know. But that's, I think, the driving force behind it is money, really,
Of course.
I just feel
always,
like, though,
right?
With a pregnant woman, though, there's so many more like dynamics involved. Like, you don't just need an adult team. Now you need neonatology. You need NICU nurses. You need, like, I just feel like there's so many other disciplines to bring in that it can complicate things even further.
I think the argument they would make is, okay, we have freestanding midwife-run birth centers right now, that do not have neonatology support. They don't have a blood bank or anything like that. I mean, postpartum hemorrhages can happen to people that have vaginal deliveries, right? So, and then and the other side of the coin is, when you say, how safe is giving birth in a hospital? Well, there are many different degrees of a hospital. I mean, you have tertiary centers that have every resource imaginable. And then you have very small labor and delivery units that don't have a lot of support.
It's true.
So it blurs the line between what what is a hospital, and what do those resources entail? And like I say, a lot of that will come out in the rulemaking. We'll see.
Well, the way the law is written, it's saying that it permits advanced birthing centers, which we'll get into what is the difference there between a regular freestanding birth center and an advanced birthing center, to perform expected vaginal deliveries from 37 to 41 weeks, trial of labor after C-section for eligible patients, and planned low-risk cesarean deliveries. So this is not supposed to be for like emergent, complicated cases. It's supposed to be for a quote unquote stable. But I mean, even a routine C-section has risk, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I would really argue with them on the trial of labor after cesarean point. I mean, that one can go catastrophic pretty quickly, So for years, I mean, that was considered to be such a high risk thing that, you have to have a physician in the hospital at all times, to respond to those sorts of things. So I don't know. I mean, I think that one's really tough.
But they would the physician would be there though in
this new model.
The delivery. Yeah, I mean, so technically there would be a physician there, right?
Well, it's a requirement. So let me read you the list of requirements for this. The ABC, the Advanced Birthing Center, must be staffed 24/7 with 2 medical directors, one being an OB-GYN and one an anesthesiologist. They must have a dedicated surgical suite, at least one. They must employ and ensure at least one RN is present at all times. They must have a written agreement with a blood bank and have written protocols for management of obstetrical hemorrhages, and must have treatment agreements with a nearby hospital. But there's some holes in that. But those are the basic requirements. So theoretically, yes.
So what about like, this was my question, like, how quickly can they get help if they need help? Like, if they, I don't know, cut some huge artery or they gash up the bladder or...
Well, I mean, it sounds like, from the requirement, they're not requiring a scrub tech to be present at all times. So if you're going to go to a surgery...
That was one of my questions. Is that enough to even perform a C-section?
No.
The 2 physicians and 1 nurse? Like, yeah, don't you need a circulating nurse? I don't know, and a scrub tech and all those things?
You should.
Yeah, so if you're not requiring them to be in-house, then, that's a potential delay that you would have to wait for someone to drive in, So in a normal C-section, you would have the physician, the scrub tech at a bare minimum just doing the surgery. You'd have anesthesia doing anesthesia. You'd have a circulating nurse and a baby nurse, because the circulating nurse is helping get us supplies and things that we need during the surgery and document everything that's going on. And, a lot of times you need somebody to resuscitate the baby at the same time. So, I mean, that's kind of the bare minimum that would be running in a hospital, and that's considerably more people than what they're listing there.
Yeah. And so let's hypothetically talk about something goes awry. You need to emergently transport mom to a hospital. Okay. To my understanding, EMS, who would be transporting, they're not specifically trained, to my knowledge, to treat patients in that situation when they're literally mid-surgical procedure or immediately following, right? Like, of course, they're trained to stabilize, but that's a little different, right? We're not talking about like a gunshot wound. We're talking about like this mom crashed during surgery.
So would the doctor go with her in the transport?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and they have that happens at surgery centers right now today. I mean, you have a major complication at a surgery center and it's putting them in EMS and the physician's getting in the ambulance with them and riding to the hospital. I mean, they're not like they're going to be able to really do anything during the ride. I mean, you can't do a hysterectomy while you're driving down US 19.
Right.
So it's a temporizing measure, but yeah, that would be the idea.
What's like the longest delay that you've seen, like as far as like, let's say a midwife is trying to deliver somebody, and I don't know, there's a horrible shoulder dystocia or something, or I don't know what's the time frame from the time they're like, oh shit, I can't do this, I got to get to the hospital, like something's gone bad, to when they actually roll in the door.
I mean, for each problem, it's different, right? Postpartum hemorrhages, from a bad laceration of the uterine artery or something like that can bleed out fairly quickly, Other things kind of develop over a longer period of time. I mean, it's common in areas that have a lot of rural area. Like when I did my first year residency in University of Kentucky, and, we would get helicopter flights in from these outside rural hospitals for these kinds of situations sometimes, you know what I mean? And they would just kind of over transfuse them a little bit before they put them on the helicopter and send them off. So it's not an optimal situation.
No.
I mean, I think although the way that this is written about increasing access to rural areas and this, that, and the other, I think that's shenanigans. I mean, I think the majority of patients in those areas are mostly on Medicaid. The people that are wanting to open these clinics, they want low risk patients that are high paying. They want well insured patients. So, if these open up, they'll be in bigger cities, especially in the beginning, and then be relatively close to a hospital. So I think nobody's going to be crazy enough to open one in the middle of nowhere and right off the bat in the beginning.
But
you're going to
that's
prove
kind
concept
of
first.
What they're saying it was for, right? Or for these, access to care deserts in Florida, right? So it's interesting,
Yeah, I mean, if that were to happen, it would be decades in the future before, everybody would feel comfortable enough to do that and to be able to streamline the model enough for it to run off of Medicaid reimbursements. I mean, I think, to me, if you want my 2 cents about how to help the rural situation, I mean, maybe make it more feasible from an economic standpoint to run a labor and delivery unit. And you would probably have some more rural hospitals open some of them, and instead we're seeing them close. So
apparently 19.4% of Florida counties are considered to be a maternity care desert. And the law does require that these advanced birthing centers have a treatment agreement with a hospital, but it makes no mention of any kind of regulation surrounding the proximity of the hospital to the advanced birthing center. So what good is it to have an agreement with the hospital if the hospital is 100 miles away?
Are they going to who's going to want to agree to this? Like, what hospital wants to accept a train wreck like that? That's 100 miles away. Yes, we agree to take your patient that isn't going to make it during transport. I mean, like,
and you got to think about this too. Like, the hospitals are never going to want to agree to anything that's relatively close to them, because then what's going to happen is all of the low risk, high paying patients are going to be filtered out of the hospital. And then it's just going to mean more hospitals closing their labor and delivery units,
Right.
And what good is it to have a accepting hospital if the hospital closes their L&D unit,
Right. What's scary about it is I think there will be a lot of physicians that will support this and push for it, because if it's going to make them a lot more money in their pocket, there's some that are willing to take those risks if they can monetarily.
It's really a huge financial incentive. I mean, when you look at the facility fees that, like, surgery centers, for example, get to recoup versus the physician fee itself, I mean, the facility fees are where the real money is at, so there is a strong incentive to try to figure this out.
Make it work. Yeah.
Make it work.
So you don't think it could potentially lead to physicians leaving the state of Florida?
I mean, I think none of the docs that currently work here would be forced to practice in one of these. I think it would be a choice.
Okay, that was one of my questions. So no one has to do this. It's going to be a choice.
No, I think you would have to, it would have to be a choice that you would make. I mean, even if you worked for a very big company, I think they'd be hard pressed to kind of force you into a situation that you're not comfortable with. There'd have to be some sort of a reimbursement or enticing you to go and give it a try, sort of a thing. So yeah. I don't know if it would lead to more docs leaving. I mean, we're definitely short-staffed. I mean, that's for sure. But
you're like, how many more can leave?
Yeah, does anybody know anybody that wants to work?
Yeah,
it might lead to like peer pressure though. Like, if the big competitive
that's interesting
OB-GYN clinic down the street is doing it, then they're going to feel like, well, I got to keep up because I need to do this trendy new,
or even because
surgery center thing.
If your competitors all of a sudden making twice as much money as you, they're going to be able to offer services and expand in ways that you're not. So true. Once somebody proves it, there's going to be a lot of copying it.
Do you think it could lead to increased malpractice insurance rates for you guys? Because there would be increased risk, theoretically.
Question, is what are how the carrier is going to view this? How I mean, they're certainly going to have to put that into their pricing models. And the really big question is, will NICA coverage be extended? So, NICA is a system in Florida where
it's a pamphlet. I was joking.
That's all the nurses think.
They give every pregnant patient gets the NICA pamphlet. It's
okay. So basically,
explain it better, honey. What's it mean?
If you have a baby that has a neurologic injury, there is a fixed amount that is paid out from this NICA settlement fund. I think it's like $100,000, and then you're not allowed to sue for more. So I mean, traditionally,
it's like a state cap.
Yeah, traditionally, like those types of lawsuits in states where they don't have this sort of a thing are the big multi-million-dollar suits that are really untenable. And so all of the hospitals and physicians pretty much throughout the state use NICA. NICA is not currently something that is available at midwife-run birth centers. So that's primarily why you don't see any MDs associated with birthing centers at all, because they would never put themselves at risk like that. So they would have to decide, are they going to extend that NICA coverage to these advanced birth centers? And I haven't heard any word about that, but that would be the big thing is, as far as coverage. I mean, if I was a malpractice carrier, would I charge more? Probably, especially in something new like this,
logical. Yeah.
But
yeah.
The other thing too is a lot of these big groups, these big that are, thinking about starting these and stuff. Some of them are self-insured, so they can make their own decisions. Without having to feel a real repercussion. They're rolling their own dice, so.
And now we're going to take a moment to hear a word from our sponsors.
Are you wearing a lanyard?
I am wearing a lanyard. I love it. It's from stinkbombodorblocker.com, and it's got this cute little lanyard that says, smell you later, because it's got a cool scent right attached to your lanyard. This one is pina colada. It smells so good.
Yeah, it's an odor blocker made by an ER nurse. You just put a little bit under your nose. You can't see it. It comes in like a ton of different scents, and it's even used by morticians. That's how you know this stuff works, right?
And we know ER nurses, they smell all sorts of stuff, just like L&D nurses. Yeah, so if an ER nurse created it, I trust it.
Yeah, I love it. This is a great product. So if you want a discount, you can get 15% off if you go to the link in our description. Go to stinkbombodorblocker.com.
Erica, do nurses ever reach out to you and send you messages like asking for what's the best place to look for a nursing job?
Oh, yeah, all the time. I send them to Vivian Health. It's a one-stop job marketplace for recruiters, employers, and healthcare professionals. You don't need to juggle multiple job sites. Vivian Health has it all.
I love Vivian Health. They have an app that you can use, and you can actually look up short contracts, like 1 to 2 weeks, longer term contracts. Some are local, some are further away. There's so many options.
Yeah, they have over 240 unique employers, and over 800,000 healthcare professionals trust them.
You can find the link for Vivian Health in the description. Okay, we are back with Dr. Ira John Seitz, OB-GYN, and my husband, and we're going to pick right back up where we left off. Erica, you had the next question, I think, started.
Yeah, let's talk about the difference between the traditional freestanding birthing centers, which I think most people are familiar with, and these new quote unquote advanced birthing centers. So correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but generally the freestanding birth centers, they cannot induce labor or administer epidurals. They can't use a vacuum or forceps, and most do not have any physicians there. Is that all kind of accurate?
I mean, there used to be 2 accredited birth centers in Florida. I think we're down to 1 now. And some of them were able to do some forms
for the whole state.
Yeah. It's tough.
Sorry.
Sounds about right for Florida.
Birth centers are really, really hard to run from an economic standpoint, and they really rely on a dedicated midwife who's giving her life to it, and it's really difficult to run. But some of them are, we're able to do certain types of induction methods, like using Foley balloon catheters and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't have epidurals from anesthesia and that sort of thing, and like I said before, I don't think any of them have any physicians that deliver within that would do forceps or vacuum deliveries or anything like that,
Right. So now we're just going to skip this huge, vast divide. We're going to jump that bridge and go straight to all of that. Plus, you can perform a C-section. There, it just seems like we have to walk before we can run, and I always think of, okay, worst case scenario. So I assume even these new advanced birthing centers are not going to have a crash cart, right? So mom crashes. They're not doing ACLS protocol, or are they? Are they just doing BLS and then transporting?
So if you're in a situation,
well, the anesthesiologist would be ACLS.
Exactly. So ACLS, and they'd have all of the equipment to put someone under general anesthesia. So yeah, they should have crash carts.
Okay.
And we'll see how the rulemaking goes. I mean, they should all have postpartum hemorrhage carts and all of the supplies to deal with those sorts of things. So yeah, we'll see how closely they have to mimic an actual hospital. And then my question would be really is, if you make them mimic the hospital, then where is the money savings, right? Like, where is the, they bill it as this way, we're going to lower healthcare costs. Well, if we're doing the exact same thing, I mean, it's going to cost the same.
You would think. I mean, why is this so appealing to a patient? Like, why do you think, John, that they want?
Who thinks that this is?
I mean, like, what are they getting?
Option.
What's the patient getting out of this? They get to leave the hospital faster. They aren't going to get a nosocomial infection. Like, what is the draw? I would say. I mean, you already know you're going to be laid out on an OR table. Your dream of, I'm talking about like scheduled sections. Your dream of a vaginal delivery. Your repeat section. Like, what is?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a good question. I mean, I think when we look at most privately insured patients, I mean, the vast majority of them are hitting their deductible during the course of their 9 months, so are you not going to hit your deductible in this new? No, of course you are. You certainly will, so I don't really see any money savings for a patient up front that I can comprehend. I mean, we have very, very few people that would ever attempt to pay cash for a delivery. If that was If that was the case, then you probably would save a considerable amount, I would imagine, but that's so incredibly rare, I don't know. I mean, I think in the past, the big draw to birth centers from patients was mainly, feeling like they had a higher level of autonomy at the birth centers, feeling like there was less risk of intervention, which mainly comes, in my mind, from the fact that you're not monitoring the baby like we have to do in the hospitals, And I highly doubt that they would run one of these advanced birth centers without monitoring the baby, because from a legal standpoint, if you have the ability to do a section to save a kid, then you have to be able to act quickly, and then therefore you should be monitoring the baby. I mean, it's just this kind of a thing, So I don't really see how, they could dress it up and make it look homier and, like, I mean, when you go to a birth center, I mean, a lot of them are really well done, and it does look very comfortable, and it looks completely different from a hospital.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of that stuff is what changes outcomes, right? It's how are you managing the patient that is, and I think that would have to be rather similar to what we do in the hospital, in my mind. I don't know.
Before we get into the next question with my husband, we are going to get into our problem of the week. Problem of the week.
All right.
What's our problem of the week, Erica?
Okay, so recently you and I have both been hearing from nurses reaching out to us that are concerned and upset with recent contract, tentative agreement that they're claiming their union agreed to without their consent, basically, and that they didn't get everything that they should have gotten in the contract.
Right.
So I don't want to speak to a specific contract because I actually have not read that TA, that tentative agreement. So this is just kind of in general, right? And I've done some content about this in the past, but please try to keep in mind when I tell you that every single time, and I mean 100% of the time, when a union and the union reps reach a tentative agreement, there are always a fraction of nurses that are pissed off. And I mean pissed off, right? I have never seen one happen where there wasn't a small percentage that are pissed off. And they're always like, we're gonna get rid of this union, they're sold us out, this, that, and the other. So it's important to keep in mind, you get to vote on this. So like you have a say, they reach a tentative agreement, but then there's a vote held afterwards. So you get to vote on this. But also people seem to lose sight of the fact that it's a negotiation, right? So you're never going to get 100% of everything that you originally were asking for. That just doesn't happen. It's not practical.
Yeah, I guess. You have to decide, right? Is it enough? Are we meeting?
Did you get the important things?
Right.
You know what I mean? You're never going to get 100%. You're not going to get all 19 things on your list, right? But if you get 10 of them and they're the more important ones, that's a win, but it's a give and take. Negotiations are a give and take. So you have to give certain things up to win certain things.
I guess we'll see. We'll find out what happens. But you're right. You can't always make everybody happy. You can't please everybody. Sure, in the perfect world, we'd love to get every demand met, but I guess we're not there yet. So
yeah.
All right, that wraps up the problem of the week. Let's get back into the next question with the hubby.
What's the average length of stay for a typical C-section patient? How long are they in the hospital?
Is it still 3 days? 3 days?
So, there are, the majority I would say is 2, and depending on complications and this, that, and the other. There are some people who do go home after day 1.
Jeez.
I would say that
God, how?
When we went through the whole issue.
It's a major operation. It's major.
I will say this, though. When we went through the whole issue of trying to decrease narcotic use, you know, and really kind of ratcheting back how much narcotics we were giving patients. A lot of the anesthesia guys, you know, came up with a really, really good protocol. And you would be shocked at how many people do these C-sections nowadays and just do Tylenol and Advil and Advil afterwards. I mean,
oh yeah,
it's amazing.
How?
I'm just telling you, the little protocol they have, it works. And these people, I'm shocked every day that they do it.
Like,
you know,
an additional, I'm going to use the wrong terminology, but some kind of an additional block, like spinal block or whatever?
Sometimes they do that.
Yeah, there are blocks that you can do on the nerves that innervate, you know, the front of the abdominal wall. Those work really, really well, you know. You know, you know, Toradol is a big part of it, you know, so you're kind of getting IV doses, you know.
Yeah, but that's when you're still in the hospital.
You know. Yeah, but it's amazing. I mean, so people are recovering fast. I mean, you see them up and walking around more often nowadays than when in the past, you know. So I think
instead
we have
of
made
being
some strides
all
in
doped up
that,
on their Percocets, now they're like, I gotta go.
If I'm sliced open, because those are major surgeries, I want more than Tylenol and Motrin, and I don't think that's unreasonable. You know, I mean,
yeah.
But so my understanding is these new, under this new law, these ABCs, advanced birthing centers, allow for one overnight stay. So that's less, right, than the average hospital stay.
Yeah, and I think the question would be, you know, I mean, we have a considerable number of patients, for example, that start having high blood pressures right after delivery. And we, you know, want to observe them another day, maybe start them on some blood pressure. Like, so are all of those patients going to be transferred out to the hospital? You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Or in, you know, when they get into the rulemaking process, are they going to extend the ability of them to stay another day? I don't know. It's a good question, you know?
The law doesn't define what a low risk C-section is. So that's just kind of left open. Is that something that in your opinion would be pretty standard for most OB-GYNs, that you would all kind of fall on the same page for what you consider to be a low risk?
Well, I mean, I think when we think about it, I mean, I think a low risk patient would be somebody who's coming in scheduled, has not been laboring at all, you know, and doesn't have any sort of, you know, anatomic abnormalities of her uterus or something, or bleeding disorder, you know, like no medical issues that could complicate the situation.
They're not,
further,
I don't have preeclampsia or like.
So,
right.
you know, when you talk about doing a C-section on somebody who's been in labor for 2 days and has been pushing for 4 hours and has a chorioamnionitis and a temperature of 102, those are some of the diciest ones that we have to deal with, you know what I mean? In regular hospitals. I mean, you know, yes, tertiary centers are, you know, doing placenta accretas and things like that are extremely high risk, you know, but for the general run of the mill stuff, you know, people that have been laboring for a long time and are infected, or, you know, that's where all of our hairs start raising up on our backs a little bit, you know.
This is a little off topic, but I've never asked you this. What's one of the craziest things you've ever seen in Kentucky when they were transferring like patients that things had gone awry and then they had to bring them to you guys? Do you recall like anything really off the wall or anything, or scary?
The scary ones, I mean, are just the ones that have bled so much before they even put them on the plane that you're like, oh yeah, we've transfused your 14 units already. Like, are you kidding me? Like,
oh my gosh,
waited that long? And, you know,
wow.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
did you lose any patients? Are you allowed to say that? Did any of those ones that roll in not make it? Yeah,
I mean,
I'm sure.
Unfortunately,
that's awful.
You know, even
that's right there, that's enough for me. Do you think the outcome would have been different had they initially started in a hospital?
I mean, yeah, that's a hard argument to make, right? Like, would everyone be safer delivering in a big tertiary hospital that has all the resources in the world? Yes, right. We'd all be safer if we lived our lives in an ICU every day, right?
I don't know. You might get that ICU delirium going on.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's not realistic. You know what I mean? But it is sad though that like in today's healthcare system, we still are seeing low risk, young, healthy women dying in childbirth. And that's so caused scary. By a multitude of reasons. But it is a very real fact still, and one that we are diligently trying to rectify. But it's a very difficult problem to solve.
It's like what I always say, like when it goes wrong, it goes really wrong. Like that's my one thing from L&D is like 98% of the time it's great and wonderful and it's a happy occasion, but like those ones when it goes bad, it's really bad. And it's like, do you want to risk being in that 2% and not having the risk? Like that's at least in my mind what I think about. That would scare me. I don't know.
So Jessica, could you picture yourself working in one of these ABCs? They need one RN at all times.
No.
Would you ever put yourself in that situation?
No, we don't even have enough people with the multitude of RNs in the hospital, much less. No. I could already see it now. They'd be like, could you run from this OR to that OR and just manage like both of them simultaneously? That'd be great. No. I
mean, I would imagine that part of the issue is probably not going to be a big part of it. I mean, the people that want to open these, they want a lot of deliveries, So the idea of them just having one RN there is probably never going to happen. You know what I mean? They're going to try to move as many people as possible. In the beginning, it could be, though,
until they build it up.
As they get. But that would be a short period of time, So, I think that, like I said before, the staffing would likely mimic what we have in the hospital, I would imagine,
In the hospital, it's not the L&D nurse that's going into the OR for a sudden C-section, right? Those are the OR nurses. Or do you?
Some big hospitals that have multiple ORs, they may have OR teams with OR nurses that take over and transition. At smaller hospitals, it's labor and delivery nurses that.
But these are usually L&D experienced. They're NRP trained. I mean, you have to.
Well, I know NICU goes in to the OR. I've done that, but I didn't know if L&D nurses specifically went in.
It used to be, and now when I was so long ago, you would follow your patient. Like your patient ended up with a C-section, you would go and you would be the one that took care of the baby at that point. So you were called the baby catcher. Like you would go to the OR and then your job, then they assumed care. The OR team assumed care of the mother at that point, and your job is to take care and stabilize the newborn after that until you either send them to nursery or send them to NICU. But yeah, like he's saying is right. Some places do it different. The hospital that I was at some point ended up with just what they call a baby nurse that would be scheduled for sections all day long. And that was her role. Okay. But they do have to have a substantial amount of training so that they know, how to take care of infants and be NRP certified and all that good stuff.
SB 7016 was bundled with a bunch of other things that probably led to the reason it was passed. So among other things, it included that it had sections requiring that hospitals with ERs submit a plan to the state saying how it will help patients gain access to appropriate care if they present to the ER non-emergently. It also had a huge financial component. It's going to invest $716 million in developing and retaining healthcare workforce in Florida. They're going to make it easier, supposedly, to license out-of-state MDs, remove the barriers for foreign-trained MDs to practice in Florida. They're going to pay doctors student loans, and it's allocating $150 million to increase the graduate medical education statewide medical residency program and expand the slots for doctors program. So it has been criticized for a couple of reasons. They're saying that it was heavily influenced and lobbied for by Women's Care Enterprises, which is a private equity-owned physicians group. So I think that kind of goes back to what you were talking about in the beginning, right? That there is the opportunity for physicians to make a lot of money in this, right?
Yep.
I think that's a topic he's not wanting to expand on much.
Okay.
I don't know if I know my hubby.
I mean,
I'm not sure.
What I'll say is, I mean, do I think that we deserve that money? Yeah, I do.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
I completely agree with them trying to get paid more for what we do. You know, it's very difficult to recruit on the salaries that we're offering. I think a lot of people would be shocked if they knew, you know, what physicians were actually making nowadays, you know? And so, you know, I completely agree with that motive, you know, and
that's fair.
And really, in all honesty, I think groups like that are really the only ones that are going to be able to have the resources to try something like this, right? Like, I mean, I think it would be extremely difficult as a single physician to go to the bank and say, hey, here's this idea I have. You want to loan me a couple $1 million, you know, like, so, I mean, I don't know if I would peg them as like they're doing something wrong, you know, just because they're owned by a private equity firm or anything like that. You know, I think that part of that whole model is trying to be experimental and see, you know, new ways to generate revenue and make things function more efficiently, you know. It's just, it's a hard thing to know. Is it going to work? You know, and that's the hard thing is, I think everybody's going to feel terrible if you try it and there's a lot of bad outcomes. You know what I mean? I think that's,
of course.
Yeah. And do you want to, as a patient, be one of those guinea pigs?
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, but you know, that's just me. Yeah. I don't think I wouldn't want to sign up and try it out. I wonder how long it'll take to get these rules. I mean, could this take years for them to iron out like the actual rules of it? Or do you think it'll move quickly?
I don't know. That's politics. So who knows? It could probably take a long time. I mean,
there's a lot of specifics I would think that have to go into that, but
I don't
know. And we may get to a point where the rule making ends and the rules are so stringent and make it so difficult that people just say, we're not even going to attempt this. You know what I mean? So,
so even though it's passed, they still have some.
Yeah, there's going to be some significant hurdles, I imagine, still before you would see one of these out in the wild, you know?
In the wild.
It sounds like an animal.
You like that?
Today's National Geographic, we
have
a scheduled C-section.
We have a rare sighting of an OB-GYN in the wild.
I love it. It sounds like a good show.
So even though it's passed, it's not taking place yet. And who is it? What organizations or bodies need to get their ducks in a row to get this going? Because it doesn't seem like the actual legislation is going to include specifics.
Oh.
Like we had mentioned before. So
what is it?
someone going to fill in those blanks, or we're just going to kind of leave it up to?
AHCA is going to come in and do the rulemaking process, and
okay,
they're going to take input from everyone, and so we'll see how that whole process goes.
Can they pay off AHCA to, like, if they want to expedite them?
I doubt it.
Be like,
yeah,
you're not supposed to be able to,
Well, there's a lot of things that go on that aren't supposed to happen, but Anywho, we're not saying AHCA that. We're not saying that. We're not saying you're being bribed. It's just a joke. Allegedly.
The Florida Hospital Association has been criticized throughout this process. They did come out and state publicly that they're concerned because there would be probably increased risk associated with this. But they did not really fight the passage of the bill. And people are saying it's because it did include a major increase in the amount that Medicaid is going to pay hospitals for maternity care. And so, do you have any thoughts on that? I know it kind of goes along with what we said earlier. Like, we need the funding.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Is everything in politics is some art of compromise. And I think a lot of times those entities are put in these difficult positions. Like, good Lord, I mean, we really desperately need these increased reimbursements, but we're really worried about, how this would affect our ability to keep our own labor and delivery units running and open, so it's tough having to make those decisions. I mean, I don't envy anybody in that having to do that. I mean, that's a really, really hard thing, so yeah.
I think they're putting you on the panel, honey. You're on the decision making. That'd be something else they could add to your list. Yeah.
Could you foresee yourself ever doing this in the future? Maybe when it's been around for a few years, being one of the OB-GYNs that go to these advanced birthing centers?
No, you really put me on the spot.
No one's going to hold you to it. I'm just curious. Jessica has said no. She would not be the RN there.
No, thank you. No, gracias. No.
It would be really tough, I think, if like, let's say we fast forward 10 years into the future and this has become a routine thing and they've figured it out and it happens to be safe.
And it's just like a hip replacement.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be really difficult for physicians not to try. I mean, I think the monetary, I mean, if you look at ortho, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would imagine probably 90% or more of their procedures are probably done at surgery centers nowadays. I mean, it is all gone. It is all left the hospital.
But their stuff seems like, am I wrong, or are they a lot less invasive than they used to be, the surgery procedure? Like,
they do have different techniques. Yes.
I mean, a C-section, you're still slicing and dicing and stretching and ripping and cutting and
well, I mean, the bladder
blading and flapping it down, smack it, flip it, like
you're making it sound lovely.
Well, if you've seen one, I mean, I'm just saying it's not like a tiny little laparoscopic little thing that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an ortho nurse. I don't know. Maybe they are doing some crazy invasive.
They're in there with hammers, beating the hell out of everything. What are you talking about?
It's a bone.
Can take it.
Bone.
It's a bone.
Yeah, it's a bone. Good Lord, I don't know. Just my opinion. Maybe I'm just sensitive as a.
Yeah, but when you talk about like joint replacements and stuff, I mean, if someone has one of those and gets an infection during that process, I mean, that's a big deal,
Oh, well, yeah.
And if you remember back, I mean, the ortho ORs, they wear this like Darth Vader kind of hood, and it's got an air conditioner and stuff built into it, and they have special rooms with airflow and everything. And all of that is now in surgery centers. You know what I mean? Like those are some of the most high tech ORs we had back in the day. You know what I mean? And all that stuff, is going to have to follow. And So if they figure it out, I mean, I think there's going to be a big incentive for physicians to do it.
Yeah.
Money.
I think it's so shocking when you first heard about this. You know, everyone, I think, reading the headline was like, what? They're gonna, who, where, how are they doing C-sections outside of a hospital? But when you really kind of break it down like you have, and in terms of this is at one point what they were looking at for ortho surgeries and outpatient surgery centers.
It does make you think of it a little bit differently. It does. You know, it's all in what we don't know is odd to us. You know, if it's never happened and it's what we're not familiar with, it sounds crazy. But I just think, yes, if it's going to work, it has to be done extremely safely, and everything needs to be lined up to avoid a catastrophe.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, unfortunately, maternal health care is an expensive process. You know, when we talk about, you know, postpartum hemorrhage, for example, I mean, the guidelines for how we should manage that are probably some of the most lengthy guidelines that we even have in our field, you know, and they bring together issues like system issues of, you know, between blood bank and anesthesia and us and nursing and, you know, so replicating those things it's going to be.
Or even pharmacy, like, are they going to have all these meds there, like all the emergency?
That's a good point.
Oh yeah.
Meds?
Yeah, they'll have to have all the meds, you know, which, I mean, there's only a few really that we use, you know, for things like that. But so yeah, they're going to have all of that available, you know. So in a lot of ways, even though it's moving to a different building, you're going to have to duplicate a lot of the processes that we have in the hospital, and unfortunately, those are pretty intensive, thorough processes that, you know, increase the costs of things. You know, it takes time to train new nurses on postpartum hemorrhage protocols. You know, it just does. You know, it's just not really a way to get around that. You know, so
yeah. Off topic question, but do you guys miss working together?
Yes. Honey?
I do.
Hello?
I do.
I'm like, he's like, oh, what do I say here? Oh, yeah, I do.
I was letting you finish.
Oh, you're so cute. I miss working with him. We were good. We were a good team.
We were good. And, you know, hospitals have this thing about, you know, physicians who are married or dating, you know, nurses that, you know, it's not a good idea for them to work together. And I couldn't disagree with it more, right? You know, I mean, I think her and I joke about it all the time.
It's worked out well for you.
But it's like, if we were in there, like, managing a patient together, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, she is not going to let me miss something. You know, she's going to be like, you need to get in here and evaluate this lady because we're not getting sued for malpractice today. Like, you know, like, so right? I think,
you better be on your game, buddy.
Diligent, I would say, than usual.
Well, you can also, like, you can read each other's thoughts too, like almost like you can anticipate what the other person's about to do, or you know what I'm saying? It's just like two best friends that are working together, two RNs that are side by side, you know? But there's just so much. But
she does tell me that I'm terrible at communication. You know, so if we have miscommunications in the house all the time, then
I used to get onto him because he was just like every other physician. After the delivery, he would not stay and help and clean the patient up. He'd just throw the gloves off and like, congratulations, and walk out. And I'm like, be a sweet doctor and help your fellow nurse a little bit. Squirt her down. Wipe her Nina a little bit.
Her Nina.
When we worked together,
I
mean, I was working for a practice that delivered about 3,000 deliveries a year. So when I was leaving the room, I was running
going to another one.
Room. Like it was.
Don't let him fool you.
Chaos.
He was going to get snacks in the doctor's lounge. He was in there feeding his face.
Well, Jessica shared the story on one of our very early episodes of the podcast.
Oh God, what did I say?
know just how you guys met and all of that, and how it was hard for you at times, and there was a lot of drama at work. But I'm curious, and I know this was not what we were going to talk about at all, but did you fall under any heat? Because you're not employed by the hospital per se, like Jessica was. So you had a separate employer. Did you fall under any heat when they caught wind of you guys dating?
I know the answer to this, but see what he says.
I remember at that time I got pulled into the L&D manager's office for something. I don't remember. I don't think it was anything related to you, but not much. I mean, really, it's not going to be. You know what I mean? It's like you say, we don't work for the company, and
he had it a lot easier in that respect. But you did have to hear from like some of your fellow colleagues throwing their 2 cents in about the relationship, or and did
they think it was inappropriate?
Well, I won't mention names, but one of them felt like that
Rick, that asshole,
felt the need to say like, he's never going to settle down with you. You're just enough. This was told to me. He's just playing you. Yeah, like
2 kids later.
Yeah. How do you like me now, huh? So I think there was just a little bit of like some people throwing their 2 cents in that nobody asked for. You know what I mean? And that would upset me, and then he'd have to hear me be upset. So in that respect,
I mean, I did have to hear from, I did have to deal with some of the blowback from the nurses that were, kind of against the whole thing, so that was a little awkward sort of at times, but.
Do you think they were jealous?
Minimal.
I think they were probably jealous. Don't you think?
Well, of course they were. Look at how handsome he is. Of course they were.
That's right.
Look at him. He's going to turn red. He's like, stop. Well, Erica, do we have an enema to give away? Let's show my husband about an enema of the week, honey. You want to hear this?
Oh, I can't wait to see this.
Well, there's not much to see, but let me pull it up.
Bend over, and we're going to give you an enema.
So Intermountain Health, they're based in Utah. Allegedly, their employees have been coming forward for a while talking about, they've experienced so much trauma and there really aren't mental health resources readily available for the employees. And they've been requesting that. So allegedly, Intermountain Health's response has been to post these, and I'll hold it up here for those that are watching the video. I don't know if you can see.
Oh, but, I saw this.
Feelings are not facts.
Feelings are not facts.
They're posting these all around different hospitals on like the ice machine and lockers. Like they're everywhere. People have sent me tons of pictures. And it's basically gaslighting the employees and saying, your thoughts aren't real. And maybe you should try like not feeling your thoughts.
and then you won't need mental health counseling, because if you just don't feel, then we won't have to provide the.
Yeah. It says thoughts and feelings are not facts. They're not. And you should consider not feeling them. So this week's Enema Award goes to Intermountain Health.
Intermountain Health. Come on. Who thought that was a good idea, Intermountain? Jeez. Which one of y'all came up with this and was like, yeah, we'll put the signs up everywhere. We'll tell them to turn their feelings.
Everything.
We already want them to be robots anyways.
We had something similar at our healthcare system.
No.
Well, it was supposedly for like mental well-being or something, right? And so one year I started seeing these like stickers, and it had like the hospital's kind of logo on it and stuff, you know what I mean? And they're like all over everything. People had them on their badges and stuff, And I was like, what's up with this sticker thing, And when you ran your finger across it, it had like a texture to it. And it was supposed to be like if you were stressed, like you would,
shut up.
No. I swear to God. And I'm like,
no.
What?
What?
Is there any science?
Like that's
that?
just gonna you're just gonna sit there rubbing your chest going, I feel better now. I feel better now.
It's like a fidget cube. It's like a fidget cube. Or a stress ball.
Of that.
I'll get you one. It was great advertising though. I mean, it had the logo everywhere. You know what I mean? So
that's
advertising
insane.
part of it worked. I mean,
that's so typical.
It was funny.
Thank you for sharing that, honey.
Maybe next week's Enema Award.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was beyond entertaining. Thank you, my love, for coming on Nurses Uncorked.
Thank you for lending your expertise, both of you.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll have to have you on again because I know more things are going to come up. There's always either something in Florida or something OB related.
There's always something in Florida.
Yep. All right. Until next time on the next Nurses Uncorked.